There's one really simple way to improve your enjoyment of the hobby. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Tattoo Tabletop. My name is James, and today's going to be a short one because this has been coming up again, so I feel like I want to address it again. Because for any of you who have watched Tattoo Tabletop for a while, over the last year that it's been in existence, one thing that I've always talked about, that I've always reinforced, is the positivity, focusing on the positivity in the hobby. You know, we live in this cool golden age where there are so many different miniature paint brands. You know, when you go to a tournament, armies look really good. You no longer see like one person who painted like 3 different colors on like a model and just went, oh, it's battle ready or anything like that. Like, people are really putting forth effort. The game has grown massively, particularly over COVID and things of that nature. There's a lot to celebrate. And one thing I've noticed is that there are some people who are no longer enjoying their hobby. And when I ask them, why aren't you enjoying the hobby, or why aren't you enjoying the games that you're playing, they start rattling off this list of problems. Now, that's fine. Everyone's allowed to have problems with, you know, a brand or with whatever. But I would like to re-emphasize a few things just to kind of put some things into perspective. I might get a lot of grief for this, but that's completely fine with me.
Here at Tattoo Tabletop, we have a lot of fun, so be sure to like, share, subscribe down below. It's completely free and it helps me out. Now back to the video.
The one way you can surefire improve your overall happiness and satisfaction with the hobby, cut out the negativity, man. And cut out the negativity is more or less addressed at, it's not addressed at like one specific thing, it's addressed at a lot of different things. We as wargamers are so accustomed, I think, to a negative mindset, a negativity mindset. When you go to a tournament, you play and you lose into a certain faction or something like that, you're much more likely to hear from somebody and just have them be like, oh, well, that army's busted, so don't even worry about it, kind of thing. Gatekeeping being, you know, keeping these people into the hobby and keeping everybody else out of the hobby. I'm very much against that because, at least for me, growing up as a nerd, one of my favorite things to do was to meet somebody else who liked the thing that I liked and get to talk about it. So why wouldn't you want it to grow? Why wouldn't you want it to get bigger? And there's people who have complaints about that. But the reason I'm talking about it these days is because I've noticed a certain uptick in negativity, and I kind of would like to be present to counter it. Granted, I'm not saying you can't criticize stuff. Constructive criticism is important. It does help improve certain conditions, but just go about it the right way. You know, there's suggestion boxes, what have you, to input your feedback. That's a good way to share that criticism, to share that perspective on things. Going online and just posting endlessly about how this sucks, this is terrible, who wrote this, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't do anything, really. And I think some people no longer have the necessary perspective of things anymore. So a good example being, some people really obviously like to rail into Games Workshop for balancing issues. But people don't remember, there used to not be balanced data slates or battle scroll updates. It used to just be, you got your book, here are your rules, ta-da. That's it. That's all you got. So if something wasn't good and needed tweaking or tuning, that didn't exist. That's a positive we have now, even though people might be a little bit off on like, oh, well, this battle scroll update, blah, blah. Again, the surefire way you're going to improve your hobby is by removing that negativity. If you really allow yourself to push your way into a positive mental state regarding your hobby, it's gonna feel good again. It's gonna feel like, not necessarily an escapism. I mean, in some ways it is an escapism for us, but it's gonna feel, you're gonna have a much more positive association. At this point, I've seen people who have gotten out of Warhammer 40k or out of Age of Sigmar purely because they created these negative feelings associated with them. And I mean created. I don't mean that certain things happened to them and then they were like, I hate this game and blah, blah. No, they created these negative mind spaces around the hobby. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're creating a mental association of negativity to the thing that you enjoyed, that you once loved. Now, if you don't like 10th edition, totally fine. You know, maybe you've played other editions and you were more preferential to those rules. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. Age of Sigmar, maybe you don't like 4th edition. That's completely fine. I can understand certain perspectives on it. But what I'm saying is the best way to enjoy your hobby and to get the most out of it is by putting yourself in that positive mental space. This is very, very important. Obviously, I probably sound like some weird little online influencer who's trying to say like, oh yes, just open up your mind and stuff. But seriously, the best thing I did for my hobby is a couple things. Number one, I started traveling for my hobby. That was a huge boost to my positive mindset towards the hobby. I met so many cool new people that I now see reoccurring at other tournaments or at the same tournament that I now travel for. This is a positive experience for me. I could get smashed in every single game of Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and as long as I still kept up with those people and got to catch up and, you know, connected with them again, that's a win for me. That's a wall. I don't care. I don't care. I will absolutely play my heart out. I'll do my absolute best. I'll score points where I can, but that's much more important to me. That positive experience is infinitely more important than what I'm about to walk into. So that's one way that I improve my hobby, is just traveling for it. But number two is if you can create those positive mental associations of painting, of hanging out with friends and building, of writing some lists together in a constructive way and not being like, oh, someone included that unit in this list. That's terrible. They're terrible, garbage, shelf them, whatever. No, be constructive. You know, everybody is always looking, you know, I think there's also a lot of people who really invest their time and their mental space into the meta. I've always been of the mind to be the meta. Make the meta. If you really like an army and it's sitting at the absolute bottom of a tier list or of a medal of like a win percentage, what have you, find a way. There's a way. I just have to say it, there is a way. There are plenty of people who have done it in the past where they've taken an army that was extremely underestimated and done super well with it. So that's one thing that I recommend. And I think that's something that can genuinely change your perspective on this hobby, on this game as a whole, on any game system for that matter. Not even like, obviously my experience is Warhammer right back here, but you can do that with any game. Marvel Crisis Protocol, Star Wars Legion, whatever your game is, there's a way for you to create that positive mental association and to just feel more positively about it. Like I said, I just wanted to keep this nice and short today, so let me know down in the comments, you know, and I'll indulge this as well, you know, feel free to let me know what your major criticisms are. I understand where people come from in certain criticisms, but sometimes you invest yourself so much into the negative that you fail to acknowledge any of the positive. We do now have Battle Scroll and balanced data slate updates to continually update the game with rules. You know, for Age of Sigmar, we have General's Handbooks. For 40k, we have the new mission decks. So there's new ways to play. There's new ways to engage in the game, and it's fresh and it's revitalized. We now have community outreach from Games Workshop to, you know, reach out to content creators to get their feedback. They do have playtesters. We have a lot more communal involvement than people think. And I think that investing in that positive mental space is gonna make you genuinely enjoy your hobby more. And especially if you support the creators who do so as well, you will not be disappointed. In the meantime though, I've been Tattoo Tabletop. Now go paint something.